You're listening to BioTalk with Rich Bendis, the only podcast focused on the BioHealth Capital Region. Each episode, we'll talk to leaders in the industry to break down the biggest topics happening today in biohealth.
Hi, this is Rich Bendis. I'm your host for BioTalk. And as you know, we try to bring very interesting guests to you from around the BioHealth Capital Region, the nation, and internationally. And today we have someone from Virginia, actually Charlottesville, Virginia, Seville as they refer to it. Eric Mayton, who is the CEO for Cerillo. And Eric also was one of the winners of the CRO services at the 2024 Crab Trap competition we had at the BioHealth Capital Region Forum back in September. And he got that award from Cerillo Diagnostics and Noble Life Sciences. So, Eric, welcome to BioTalk.
Thanks for having me, Rich. It's great to be here.
I'm sure that a lot of people would like to learn more about you because you had 7 minutes of fame up in Rockville, Maryland to tell your story. And it's hard to get everything across in 7 minutes. So we're going to give you a little more time today to talk about Cerillo and what you've done to bring it to where it is today. And also talk about where you're going in the future. But we're going to start first by, rather than me reading your bio, the best thing for anyone to do is to give a self-introduction of yourself because you know best how you evolved to where you are today and what the listeners might like to learn about you. So give us a little bit about your background, Eric.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rich. And it's a pleasure to be here. So my background, I started my career as an academic research scientist. So I graduated from the University of Virginia with a degree in chemistry. And then I went and got a master's at Virginia Commonwealth University in biochemistry. After that, I joined a local diagnostic startup that rose really rapidly. I was there for several years, helped start a new spin out of that organization, and then transitioned over into the business world. So went back to school, got my MBA from the University of Richmond, did some work in consulting and interned in private equity during that time. And then back in 2020, the founders of Cerillo, who are three primarily academics from the University of Virginia, were looking to hire their first full-time CEO as they had received multiple NSF grants and gotten the product to generation one, as we refer to it. And they had seen some really nice traction across the globe. They wanted to really make a go of it from a business perspective. And so over the course of about 6 months or so, we talked. They convinced me to leave my job in management consulting, take on this gig, and we've been growing ever since. And so that was December of 2020. I started here at Cerillo, and we've grown extremely rapidly since then. Our product offerings, our customer base, our applications, and all the good fun stuff.
Excellent. It's a UVA spin out, and you've been very loyal in your education to go to UVA, VCU, and become a Rich and Spider. You've done everything in Virginia, so you're a very loyal Virginian, Eric.
Yes, I call myself the one-man economic development plan for the higher education system of the state of Virginia.
Okay. You basically missed Virginia Tech and George Mason, but I'm sure that there's room for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the geographies of those two didn't make it really conducive.
That didn't make sense. You talked about this spin out with three founders that were academics from UVA. Talk a little bit about how it evolved, what is the primary product technology of Cerillo, and how it's evolved from when it spun out to where it is today.
Yeah, great question. So the original technology flagship product is what's known as the Stratus. And so the Stratus is a miniaturized microplate reader. So think of your 96 well plates that any basic research scientist has used in the past. You have to put those into some sort of device to analyze the data. And that's where the Stratus came from. So when I say miniaturized, it literally fits into the palm of your hand. The founders actually came up with this idea as part of a PhD project in the biomedical engineering program at UVA. There was a specific PhD student who's now a professor at the University of Michigan, who's still an active collaborator with Cerillo, who was growing several dozen 96 well plates of bacteria that had an indication in cystic fibrosis. And so he had these plates just stacked inside of an incubator. And he was having to very manually transition these plates from his incubator to a 96 well plate reader, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the lack of efficiency, and even more so than the efficiency, it's the data integrity, was causing significant hurdles for him. And so he said, why don't I just build a plate reader that will fit inside of this incubator and I can stack them? And so that's what he did. And that was where the technology was that was funded through the NSF until December 2020 when I came in, as I was referring to. Ever since then, we've really advanced the internal systems for the microplate reader. We've got some really exciting things coming up in 2025 in that regard as well. But we also really reached back into what's going on inside the laboratories and developed a new type of plastic consumable, which we call the duet co-culture system, which has really, really taken off in the microbial space in the past 18 months or so. So yeah, that's where the original technology started. We got it to market. We are a very agile based company, which what I mean by that in this regard is we get products in the hands of users as quickly as we possibly can and get their feedback. And that's really what we've been doing for the past 3 years or so and continue to advance those technologies.
So I guess you're commercial then. You're actually selling it. You're not still in the development stage.
Oh, absolutely. We are commercial. We have customers in over 27 countries across 6 continents. We see all kinds of unique, fun applications. In fact, last week, we just did a webinar with a researcher, Dr. Stephen Techman, up at Michigan Tech, who uses our entire system. So he uses our plate readers, our co-culture consumable. And what he was using it for was plastic upcycling, not recycling, upcycling. So what that means is he was taking plastic waste, utilizing our devices to identify the different subcomponents and microbes that could break that plastic down, and then turning it into base product for new food. So that was a really unique application. We've seen a lot of people using it to study antimicrobial resistance. We see large corporations, Danone and breweries here in Ichiban, that are using it in their fermentation processes. And so it's been a really cool journey to see all the unique game-changing research that our users are doing.
Well, you talk about being in 27 countries, so you probably a broad variety of different types of purchasers and customers. Give us a little background on the types of consumers or purchasers of your technology that you're really trying to market to.
We have 3 primary customer segments. We have our industrial customer segment that includes the groups like Kirin and Danone, and then your pharmaceutical developers who are developing the next generation of therapeutics for indications like C. diff. That's a big one that our users are going after. And then we also have the academic and government labs. So we've placed quite a few units at the USDA and other institutions like that. Any basic research laboratory, whether it's George Mason or Virginia Tech or UVA, like you mentioned, is suitable for our product lines. And so they're doing any kind of research, and the initial beachhead market has been in the microbial space. So anyone that's using bacteria or yeast in their studies or want to analyze the phenotypic activity of those microbes have been our initial customer base across the globe. It's a massive, massive sphere of research in the microbial space.
For a small company from Charlottesville, Virginia, getting into 27 countries, that's pretty remarkable. So what's your form of marketing that enables you to touch people all around the world?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we do a couple things. The one thing to really highlight here is our global distribution partnership network. So we work with about 20 different distributors across the globe. So when you think of the distributors in this space, obviously you think of groups like Fisher Scientific, who we partner with throughout the globe. We have a very strong relationship in Australia with Fisher Scientific, actually. We also have regional partners. So think of smaller groups like Scientific Lab Supplies in the UK, Kentron Microbiology in the Netherlands, Funakoshi in Japan. And one of our strongest partnerships is a group in China called Longfuja, who sells a suite of products that do bacterial work like anaerobic chambers and that sort of thing. So we're able to partner with these regional groups to get to customers. And the other marketing aspects are doing things like our webinars, attending trade shows. So we're still in the very early stages of our commercialization efforts.
One of the tempting things for an early stage company as you're commercializing is you get all these people that say, hey, this would be neat to do this.
Yeah.
And,
Cool.
oh, I think I can do this with that. And then so when you have limited resources, limited people, and limited bandwidth, how do you stay focused on trying to stay true to the mission and not get carried away trying to do everything for everybody?
Oh, that is a question I struggle with on a minute by minute basis. I think the biggest thing that we have done to try to stay focused in the past several years is remember who our customer base is now and learn from them. And so have regular conversations with customers. We're talking whether it's my head of product, my CTO, my sales manager, we're having numerous customer touch points each week and listening to them and understanding what is really impacting them is really the biggest thing. And I think that has helped refine the vision pretty extensively over the past 3 or so years, really understanding where their pain point is. And we have really leaned into the chasm that has been created in the research and product development field. The product development is as much a customer base as the R&D, the chasm between the dry lab and the wet lab. And so in the past 20 years, computational power in the biological sphere has just gone through the roof. Like the hockey stick has just been tremendous in the ability to compute data and have really nice models that can give you some insights. And you think, well, that sounds revolutionary. I wonder if that works. Well, the problem is the tools that support the phenotypic or the biological validation of that dry lab data have not kept up. And so what you see here is, you see drug candidates failing, specifically in the microbial space, because there are so many different variables that impact these microbes. So microbes do not exist in isolation. They exist in communities. It is very, very challenging to understand how those biological interactions are truly taking place down to the mechanism of action. And that's really what we're trying to solve for, is provide the users technologies and tools in the biological, like the wet lab, that can keep pace with their computation systems at a price point that makes sense. Because these biological models and computational models are pouring out hundreds and hundreds of data points per hour and hundreds of insights per hour. Someone actually needs to go test them in a biological sphere in a way that is efficient and not cost prohibitive, basically, right? And that's really what we're aiming to solve for with the initial line of products and where we're heading in the future.
So basically, I think you just tried to explain to me the differential advantage of the Stratus and Alto microplate readers versus some of the others in the market. But for the novice who doesn't know anything about these at all, in a very short way, tell me what your primary differential advantage is versus your competition.
Absolutely. So the traditional microplate readers are about the size of, think of half your desk, the desk that you're sitting at there, Rich. And they can cost $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. And they have all the bells and whistles. And that's great. We're not trying to replace those traditional microplate readers. Those are built for a lot of applications that we can't support, and nor are we trying to support every application that those can. However, far too often, those very expensive pieces of equipment are being tied up with very low complexity readings. So these absorbance-based, these optical density-based readings that you can do in a much more efficient and cost-effective manner. And that's really what we're going after. So take those low value or those high density readings that need to be done, meaning these readings need to be done every 5 to 10 minutes repeatedly over the course of 72, 96 hours. Take them off of a piece of equipment, get it down to that's very expensive. So get that cost per data point significantly down, because that's really one of the biggest barriers here in bridging that gap between the dry and the wet lab. You want to be selective with the amount of time that you're using these expensive capital resources so that you're not just wasting time. With our devices, you can test more hypotheses quicker and at a much lower price point.
Thank you for that. I think that helps all of us understand a little bit better what you do. Talk about vertical integration or subcontracting or contracting out with your technology. How much of this do you control right within your space within Charlottesville, or how much do you actually have to farm out to actually get your finished product?
We do everything in Charlottesville.
Wow.
Yeah. So without sharing too much of the secret sauce here, we have our components that we will have assembled and shipped to us, but we can assemble one of these devices in less than half an hour. And so we have tons of availability and capabilities to do this in-house here. If you've ever been to Charlottesville, right off the beautiful downtown mall in the middle of Charlottesville. So yeah, we do almost all of this in-house.
Oh, that's great. Congratulations. It's nice to see that people within the BioHealth Capital Region have control of their own destiny. A lot of people wouldn't think that because most people are outsourcing as much as they can right now, but you've been able to keep everything in-house. So congratulations on that. We're talking to Eric Mayton, who's the CEO for Cerillo in Charlottesville, Virginia, who has some very unique microplate readers, Stratus and Alto. So being in Charlottesville has advantages to you,
Yes.
probably might have a few disadvantages. Talk about the strengths of being there and how you overcome some of the challenges by not being in a large metropolitan market doing the same thing.
Charlottesville is a wonderful place. I went to undergrad here. I got married in Charlottesville. I always refer to it as the happiest place on earth for me. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to work. The challenges really come in that aren't unique to Charlottesville. They're very common to anyone that is outside one of the big metropolitan areas, which is we're doing great work of being commercial, getting products in the hands of users, but we don't have a capital base here that can help support us and take us to the next level. We have wonderful investors from the state of Virginia. They are fantastic. We love every one of our investors, and they've been very supportive throughout this journey. But we do need additional pockets that are a little bit deeper, which help us get to Gen 3, Gen 4 of our product lines, and really importantly, help us spend the money on sales and marketing that we need to hit those top lines. So I think that answers both of the questions at the same time, the pros and the cons. The pros are we have a great quality of life here. We can move very quickly, efficiently at a fairly low cost. However, we do miss out on the resources that are from a larger metropolis, capital, talent, all those other things. And not just capital and talent, but also recognition and awareness.
Yeah, visibility.
Visibility and then therefore credibility. Because when I go and talk to some of the VCs, their mouths literally will drop with some of the KPIs that we can put out and the number of units we've installed and the impact that we've had across the globe. But it's hard to get their attention if you don't have that direct insight to them.
Well, you've accomplished a lot of things that most companies and entrepreneurs and small businesses can't. And that's after 5 years, almost 90% of small businesses doing what you're doing don't make it. So you've made it. But the key is, I think what people have to do somewhat in the BioHealth Capital Region is be nimble. They have to be lean, and they also have to be able to leverage resources more efficiently than what people in Boston, San Francisco, and other places are. So you talk about capital challenges and talk about where you are and what you're trying to accomplish in feeding the cash that's necessary to grow this business right now.
The primary thing that we need is the additional ability to expand our commercial activities. We are a commercial stage firm, which means unlike a lot of other investment opportunities that we talk to with VCs and others, we have top line revenue metrics, we have profitability metrics, all these other aspects. And so the core thing that's holding us back at this stage from advancing and attacking that market more directly is our ability to invest in those resources. For us to truly hit the hockey stick, we need to have the money in the bank to spend on it. We have really demonstrated some significant efficiencies, as you were kind of referring to there, where I can show year over year greater than 100% growth over last year, which is phenomenal. And we're doing really well, but we're still limited in our ability to go attack. And then we can fund a lot of our product development through grants from very generous government agencies throughout the United States.
Yeah, the non-dilutive funding is really one of the lifebloods of a lot of small businesses, and people underestimate how important that is. And I think also what's really neat to watch, and I've been watching Virginia evolve over the last 10, 12 years, is how they've actually come together with additional resources, organizations, and funding mechanisms. But just like anything, a state, county, city, or government can only take it so far. And that's when the commercial world and the private sector has to take over. But I guess one of the things you've been able to do is prevail, and persistence pays off over time, Eric. So I can tell by your demeanor that you're definitely persistent.
Well, thank you, Rich. I appreciate that.
Let's talk a little bit about the crab trap competition and the prize you won on CRO services. I don't know if you've had a chance to take advantage of those yet, but tell me how you would use clinical research organization services to benefit Cerillo.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for hosting the Crab Trap. It was a great event. I actually was able to make quite a few connections that I had never met before there, including in some of our largest partnership organizations. And so for us, the CRO services, unlike a lot of quote unquote biotechs, we're not developing a therapeutic. That being said, however, most of the CRO customers are. And so that allows us as a tech bio tools company to go after some application notes utilizing those resources. We are, to your point, extremely lean. And so for us to be able to get the necessary marketing materials and the data that goes along with generating the application notes, which our customer base so desperately want to see, we can utilize the CRO partnerships. And so we've had initial conversations and slotted in, okay, when we get to this stage in our R&D development, we'd like to send you some products and be able to get some of the applications done with you all. But this is also a very good way for us, back to the commercialization activity. CROs are a customer of ours. We talked to one of the biggest CROs in the world on Tuesday to start demoing some of our devices with the expectation that that will convert into multi-unit sales across multi-sites across the US and the globe. And so validating, again, the products and the workflows at the CRO services are incredibly impactful for us.
Yeah, it's nice to have some good CROs in our own backyard that we can utilize rather than having to go outside the region. So we talked about some of the challenges, the opportunities, some of the great growth things that you've done. There's going to be some major milestones you want to accomplish over the next 3 to 5 years. Let's talk about what those milestones are that you have your vision for.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to keep them fairly generic. I know we do have competitors that follow us on all of our socials and want to get the insights as to what we're doing and where we're heading. But I'll just keep it vague enough that we're not stopping with where we are with what we call Gen 2 of our microplate reader, Gen 1 of our consumable, and Gen 1 of our software devices. And so the milestones are coming very quickly. We're moving very rapidly in new product development, and you'll see some really exciting news from us in the first quarter of next year on that front, but which then allow us to continue servicing different types of users in the same sort of sphere. So really broadening it out from just the microbial product developers into more of just a generic customer base inside of the biological R&D and product development. And we've already got multiple partners that have lined up and been basically banging on our door for a couple of years to get them these products. And so that's where we're heading in the next 6 months, which is quite exciting. In addition to that, we're also going to be seeing some really exciting additional commercial activities and opportunities that go along with that. And so, yeah, new products, new commercialization efforts outside of the beachhead market that has been microbial for us, but still fitting that same vision and product need of balancing the rapid advancement in computational skills and taking that into true phenotypic validation of computational modeling.
Great. Well, it sounds like you have a few challenges ahead of you, but you've been up to the task in the past.
Thank you. Yeah.
So as we talk about the future, is there anything that we haven't discussed that you'd like the listeners to know without giving away any trade secrets?
I think the biggest thing that I think listeners should really understand is how big of an issue and how big of a problem it is that we're trying to go after. And so one of the things that we talked about prior to the conversation here is Froome's law, which is basically Moore's law spelled backwards. And what that concept is basically over the past 20 or 30 years, you would expect that the cost of developing a new therapeutic and drug would have decreased because of all these computational powers. However, the opposite is true. It is going up significantly, and it's not just due to rapid cost increases across the board. One of the core fundamental issues here is the same one that we've been talking about over and over here, again, which is the rapid advances in computational models and the lack of advances in the biological testing and validation systems to keep up with it. And so you're having more and more options and routes to test, and selecting which ones are the best and then actually validating them has been a challenge. And so any and all technologies that can help bridge that gap, I think, are beneficial for humanity to go after and start really looking after and researching. And that's really where we're starting.
So, Eric, thank you for this discussion today. And if people who would like to learn more about your product or a potential investor would like to know more about the company, how would they get in contact with you?
You can find us on all social channels, LinkedIn, look up Cerillo. Our website is cerillo.bio. We have a pretty lean team here. So if you wanted to reach out to me, you could always email me. My email is eric@cerillo.bio. Yeah. So we're always happy to have conversations with potential end users, potential investors, anyone.
And potential partners. So we've been doing this BioTalk podcast with Eric Mayton, the CEO of Cerillo, and that's Cerillo for those who don't know how to spell Cerillo. And you could look them up at cerillo.bio. And Eric, thank you very much for being on BioTalk today. And as you say, first quarter of next year, there's going to be some major announcements. Maybe we'll come back and circle back after those announcements are made.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Thank you very much and good luck to you.
Thank you, Rich. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to BioTalk with Rich Bendis.